Hey everyone, it's Bookshore. So today I want to talk about something fun and something I don't talk about too much, honestly. Something I'm a big fan of, and that's bestiaries. And today we're going to talk about a facsimile of a 12th century bestiary. Now, what is a bestiary? It's a book of animals and creatures. Oh look, a siren. And pretty much what it is that the ones that are really interesting, especially back in this period, and even before that, dating all the way back to the Greeks, is that it has mythical beings right next to real world, everyday, commonplace animals. Now, a little bit of history on this before we get into it. So, this was like a compilation of different scholars. It is in a church where they made the manuscript of the bestiary, but then it was translated in the 16th century. So, the 11th century manuscript I don't think is found, but they have a 16th century copy of it. And then this facsimile was made by T.H. White, and he translated it into English because it's a Latin bestiary. Sounds very Name of the Rose, Umberto Eco-ish, and we'll get into that later. And the really cool thing about this is, like, again, you'll have stuff like lions, hyenas, what they call the hyena in this book, elephants, but then right next to stuff like the basilisk, griffins. Like, this is thought to be a real creature in there. And it's just so funny and quaint and how they do that. And a lot of these creatures, date back to the day of like Pliny the Elder and Herodotus being 4th century BC and 76 AD as well. So, this is like 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years after these people, and these same beasts are being disseminated to the modern day. It reminds me when I was at the International Book Fair and I saw like an ancient map with a screwed up depiction of the world, and on the back they still had a lot of the same, like the sciopods and the big-eared fellows and the wolf people. It was like from the 6th century, but this dates all the way back to Pliny the Elder, who died from the explosion in Pompeii. And it really goes into what I talked about in my Umberto Eco video, the interlopation of like fiction and reality. And that's why I love this stuff, because it's a scientific document with a bunch of bullcrap myth in it. The way you get it to a lot of this stuff is that, just like Herodotus and Pliny the Elder, a lot of it is secondhand and hearsay. So, a lot of these deformations of these animals into these mythical beings are oftentimes just the game of telephone. It was like they heard it from just multiple secondhand sources until it got to them. So animals like the rhino, which exists in the real world, is deformed into the unicorn. Even like past this, I believe, you have a lot of animals that have varying different depictions of themselves, because again, it's not based off first-hand evidence. It's that telephone. Just like when Herodotus would hear about the flying serpents in Egypt, or like the sciopods, or like the big-eared fellows, he would hear them because somebody who went to India, presumably, saw those creatures, and then he reported them as reality in his work. Now, what makes this one a bit more interesting, besides that, because a lot of bestiaries have those same similar creatures as well, is that this one has a very strong religious bent to it. So, like for example, when it will talk about the elephant, he'll say stuff like, yeah, it has a gestation period of 2 years, which is actually pretty accurate. It's 18 to 22 months. But he'll say it'll live for 300 years. And then he'll talk about the reproduction cycle and how it'll go to like this special tree and, almost instantaneously get impregnated by the male elephant. And this is relating it to Adam and Eve and how they're trying to please God, and before the provocation in the flesh, they knew nothing about copulation, nor had they knowledge of sin. So just really strange to do that. Or even the hyena, which is the hyena, being that robs graves and stuff like that, as it says, which is kind of true. But like he just kind of eats the dead, eats the corpse, and then he starts relating it to like this really anti-Semitic idea of the Jews and all this avarice and stuff like that, and how the hyena is neither male or female, so then it's like it's neither pagan nor Christian. And it's like, why are you relating these animals to these weird Christian concepts, man? So it's just really funny in that sense. And some of the depictions on here are kooky, like, for example, the griffin eating the pig. Yeah, that's what it says. It says it's eating the pig. I haven't really seen anybody eat something like that, but I've seen other depictions of that. Anyway, or I'll post it as stuff up. Like you'll have the basilisk. The basilisk is really funny because it says it loses to the weasel. I believe this one has the trident as well. They'll have crazy depictions of dogs in here too. And then funny names like the cock, which is like the chicken. But then it just have really banal stuff like swans, like sheep and whatnot, and it just common day depictions and like the camel, and it's nothing really to write home about. So, but I think that's what added a lot to the charm of it, of that just like these weird, wacky animals that we only know in myth, next to these very commonplace like farmyard animals, even dogs, for example, and then like making these weird connections just to religious icons in the Bible of virtues, of Christian virtues and whatnot, and just like, what are you doing, man? And again, to go back to Umberto Eco, this is cool because it's like, here's a copy that was a compilation of different scholars in that church, and then it got translated in the 16th century. Oh, not translated, but rewritten, and now it's translated to this facsimile. So it's just like, when I read stuff like Umberto Eco and stuff like that, and those postmodern ideas, it's like, it's really not that far from reality when you dig into it. Name of the Rose or stuff like Don Quixote is about a found manuscript, or even like House of Leaves. It's about these found manuscripts that might have been altered in the past as well, and trying to decipher them into the current language that we have now, and seeing how accurate they are, and questioning how accurate they are. But again, just like the animals in this book, the mythical ones, were like the unicorn is a deformation and a telephone game of the rhino, how much of this is a deformation of the original Latin text? And how much is that original Latin text, presumably the 16th century one, a deformation of the 11th century one? And we don't know how many more deformations go past that as well. Now, I haven't read the book the whole way through, just because it's like, bestiaries are just kind of tough to do that with. Like, I have this selection of Pliny the Elder and his natural history, and it's just more something that you just take in bits and sips and look at interesting sections as well. Kind of like Aristotle's natural history and depictions of creatures as well, which is very surprisingly scientifically accurate. Like, there was one thing to talk about where there was a squid he talked about, and later on, like I think near the 1900s, they found that same squid and the same biomechanics behaviors that he depicted in there. But then he'll also have a talk about a bird that goes and sucks the milk out of cows. So it's just really funny how you see these different things, and you get these kooky depictions. Like, here's one for fish. Fish don't look like this, man. Like, what the hell? And that's a horse mermaid. It has a specific name, it's like Cantaphopes or something. I'm not gonna pronounce it, but yeah, I'd say if you have a chance, pick it up, read through some of these, and it's just really quirky. I have a lot of other bestiaries as well that I can cover on this channel. Unfortunately, a lot of Western ones typically depict the same creatures as, again, Pliny the Elder and Herodotus. But I have a Muslim one as well by somebody whose name I can't pronounce. I was looking for that one, and they finally made it into English. I got it for like $50. I almost returned it because it just seemed more like to be museum studies within the book. But then I did find translations of the actual work and text. So if you like this, I can go more into depth about it. I can pick more highlights from here as well. And I'm just gonna throw up some pictures of here because, man, these images are like, these animals don't look like this. So yeah, that's this. I'm gonna have more book reviews on the way. I'm in a 1,300-page void that I'm hoping to be done, but I have some cool stuff coming up for you this week. So,
Next and final stop, Oceanside Transit Centre.